Well, I joined the Marine Corps in 1954. I graduated from Messick High School in 1953. And shortly after high school, I enrolled in William R. Moore School of Technology, which is still down on Poplar Avenue. And I was studying automobile mechanics and fender and body work with the thought that that may be what I'd prepare for and, do or work to make a living. Shortly after I'd been there 3 or 4 months, I guess, 2 of my friends came by that I ran around with in high school, Dale Prince and Billy Luna. And they came by and they said, "We just joined the Marine Corps." Well, I don't know, I was tired of the fender and body work, and I'd already realized that I didn't want to make a living doing fender and body work. And I said, "Well, you're not going to the Marine Corps without me." So I left school and I went with them, joined the Marine Corps. And the next week we left and went to Parris Island, South Carolina, where we spent the next 13 weeks in a Marine Corps boot camp, preparing for being a Marine. When we graduated out of boot camp, came back home for a short furlough, and then went back out, and they assigned me to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And they gave me a spec number of 2111. I went into Ordnance Technician. And we went in a 105-155 Hauser outfit, and my responsibility was to be able to keep in good repair the sights and the mechanisms and all that it took to operate the 2 cannons from about 8 miles back of the lines, as well as we had an ordnance shack technician, and we had a number of M1 rifles, BARs, Browning automatic rifles, and other equipment. And that was my responsibility to keep all of that up. Stayed in the Marine Corps about 2.5 years, what they considered one term, because when I'd signed up, we were in the middle of the Korean War, and I had signed up for the duration of the war, whether that was a year or 10 years. As it happened, we had left Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and were going to the island of Vieques down in the Caribbean. We were test firing some 8-inchers. 8-inch cannons, which were new to the Marine Corps arsenal at that time. And Korea had at least quieted down. They said it had ended, but it flared back up on the island of Formosa. So we darkened ship and headed to the Panama Canal, but about the time we got there, this Formosa situation died down, and they turned around and we came back to the island of Vieques and spent 3 months there. And then returned to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. During the next year and a half, we did some simulated landings, various things coming off of PAs and KAs and coming in on the beach at different places, setting up the 105-155 cannons, simulated warfare, but no war flared up during that time. And then the last year or so that I was in the Marine Corps, I qualified with the M1 rifle and did well enough that I never made the first team, but I shot on a Marine Corps rifle and pistol team for the last year that I was in the Marine Corps, just as a part of the team and a backup if one of the first team members was not able to make one of the contests or things that we had with other branches of the military service. I got discharged out of the Marine Corps after 2.5 years and came back home to Memphis, Tennessee. I saw a lot of a world that was different from anything that I'd ever known before. It wasn't like the United States. We visited the island of Puerto Rico, San Juan, Santurce, various places. Of course, the island of Vieques is off of Puerto Rico, and it's a very small island owned by the United States Marine Corps. It's where they do combat duty and combat training, particularly with artillery pieces. The 8-inch cannons that we were test firing, we test fired them at Lejeune, North Carolina, but they vibrated so bad they were breaking windows out a couple of miles away in the commercial buildings. And, but I saw things that now through the years have become commonplace by living in Mexico and places like that. So, but it was a different world. People living on dirt floors, stick houses, adobe houses, thatch roofs, and that sort of thing. It was quite an eye-opener to me as to what the world was like outside the United States, and I never thought about it to amount to anything, but it was it was like, you know, I'm glad I was born in the United States.
How did you get there? Did y'all take ships or fly?
Yes, we went on ships, what they call KAs or PAs, troop transport ships. And then we made a couple of different landings and various things on what they call an LST. That's where we carried our 105, 155s and all the trucks and artillery. If you're not familiar with it, the LST is the ship that has the two large front doors that open all the way down to the water and got a ramp come out so that boats, land crafts, amphibious vehicles, land and water can go out the front door of that ship, down the ramp and into the ocean and up on the beach. That was on Parris Island, and of course we were training to be Marines, and we didn't know all that was involved and really what they were training us for. But along with training us how to fight a warfare, how to kill, how to defend America, all part of that was teaching us discipline to maintain our focus and not lose our cool under harsh treatment, difficult circumstances. But Parris Island, South Carolina is noted for sand fleas, and they bite and they sting and they hurt pretty bad. But we were standing at attention one day, and the drill instructor, we'd just come out of the mess hall, and he was walking up and down behind us. It was probably 100 degrees and everybody was hot and sweating. A sand flea bit one of the guys on the neck, and he kind of cut his eyes both ways and didn't see a DI, didn't know he was behind us just a few feet, but he slapped the DI. She slapped the sand flea upside his neck and killed him. And the DI was extremely upset with that. Of course, he came in, and of course he just really dressed the young man down. Said, you know, if you'd have done that in combat, the whole platoon would have been wiped out. You'd have given away our location and everything. But he picked that sand flea off that young recruit's neck, didn't say any more. We went back and finished our day and went in, and everybody went to bed. We were in what they call pram tents, that's 16 by 16 tents. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, the DI was hollering at the top of his voice, platoon 89 outside. We all fell outside. Everybody was in their underwear where they just got out the rack, and he dressed us down about that sand flea again. Everybody had to go back in, put on full field packs, and we marched about halfway out to this place called Elliott's Beach where they did hand-to-hand combat training. And he found a place, I guess he had pre-selected that, but we all took our little shovels off our combat packs, and we dug a hole 6 foot wide, 6 foot long, 6 foot deep. And he threw that sand flea in there, and he said, bury that sand flea, we're gonna have a service for the sand flea. So we buried the sand flea, and we had a service, and he said a little prayer of something over it, and then he said, find that sand flea. So we said, oh me. So we started digging again, and we dug the hole out again. We were still about 9 o'clock in the morning. I never did find that sand flea, but one fella had one on his neck or something, and he grabbed that sand flea real quiet and just caught it and everything, went to hollering and shouting, had it in his fingers, and he said, sir, I found the sand flea, I found the sand flea. So we carried it up in the DI. Of course, he had done this before, but very much under control. He took the sand flea and looked at it, and he called the recruit's name. I forgot, I think it was Azar. He said, Private Azar said, was that sand flea you killed yesterday a male or a female? And he didn't know what to say, and he said, after a hum-haul and stumbling around, he said, sir, it was a male. DI said, sorry boys, wrong sand flea, keep looking. So I don't know, we stayed there till about lunchtime or something. We never found the sand flea, but anyway, it had a pretty good element of teaching us discipline when we were in a combat situation and could have given away our position by some move like slapping a sand flea. So all in all, it was profitable to each one of us, or it was at least profitable to me, because I learned from it. And I didn't fully realize how hard they were working at teaching us discipline. They stayed on us from morning till night. They made life hard for us. and they would embarrass anybody and everybody. But one of our young men, a good young man, I could call his name, but I won't do that, but he took all he could take, and the DI was in his face and dressing him down, and he just lost his cool, and he doubled his fists up, and he hit that DI upside the head about as hard as he could hit him, and the DI literally turned a backflip out there in the middle of the drill field. And we thought, oh no, he's fixing to kill him. And the DI got up, dusted himself off, went over and put his arm around the young man's shoulder and said, son, he said, I wish you'd have made it, but said if that had happened on the battlefield, we'd all been wiped out by now. He said, go back to your tent, pack your things, go up to headquarters, check out, and go home. Said, I think you'd have made a good Marine, but we just can't have that sort of life of discipline. So it dawned on me that they didn't really hate us, but they were trying to make life as hard as they could to see if we'd crack under their discipline, under their pressure they were putting on us. And that's been one of the trademarks of the Marine Corps, is to build men that can stand the pressure and handle whatever comes up.